Hello everyone, it's Annie. I'm back with my mid-year Freakout tag. So I have not been on Booktube for quite a few months because I was very busy graduating with my library science master's degree. And so that's done, and I am back, and I love filming this tag, and I have read 104 books so far this year as I am filming this. And I just really wanted to talk to you about my favorites and my most surprising ones and all of that good stuff. And that's what this tag is for. So let's get started. All right, first question, the best question. My favorite book of the year so far is Road to Ruin by Hannah Lee. This book, I love it so much. Okay, this was one of the most unique adult SFF books that I have ever had the pleasure to read, okay? Lee has crafted an amazing world full of dinosaur-like creatures, mana magic, and these really cool purple and blue lightning storms that are just ravaging this desert-like wasteland. It is just so cool. Really reminds me of Mad Max Fury Road in the best way. And adding to all of that, a courier who delivers packages on a motorcycle and wears a dinosaur skull as a helmet. Like, how much cooler can you get? The politics and the world building were so intricately done. This wasteland is populated by city-states. Again, very evocative of Mad Max. And they all have their unique attributes about them, unique cultural attributes, and everything just felt so real, even though this was very much a fantasy world. It was so good. The main character, Jin, was very easy to love. I loved her snarky voice, and the book was very serious, but her snarky voice kind of added like a really much needed sense of humor to it. And Jin, the synopsis of this book is that she has been taking letters to and from this prince and princess from two separate city-states who are like forbidden from being together. And while doing this, she falls in love with both of them, and there ends up being a queer poly romance between her and these two, and it's so great. And I can't believe that this was a debut book. It really felt like a seasoned SFF writer wrote it. And I am also ecstatic that this is going to be, I think, a trilogy or just a series in general, because the cliffhanger at the end just broke me. I need more, and I need more of this world. I am so happy that this is a series. If you haven't read this yet, please pick it up. You need to read it. It's the best book I've read this year. Next question, what is the best sequel I've read this year? I have two. So first we have The Brides of High Hill, which I think I have them right here is 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth book in the Into the Riverlands novella series by Niveau. And it was amazing. It really was. If you don't know this series, it follows a non-binary cleric named Chi who basically travels the land in this Southeast Asian inspired world and collects stories. But this book, oh my god, it was really good. It is really different in tone than the other ones. It's a gothic mystery. So the cleric Chi accompanies a beautiful young bride to her wedding to the aging ruler of a crumbling estate situated at the crossroads of dead empires. The bride's party is welcomed with elaborate courtesies and extravagant banquets, but between the frightened servants and the cryptic warnings of the sons of the Lord's mad son, they quickly realize that something is haunting at the shadowed halls. As Chi and the bride-to-be explore empty rooms, they are drawn into the mystery of what became of the Lord's previous wives and the dark history of the manor itself. But as the wedding night draws to its close, Chi will learn at their peril that not all monsters are to be found in the shadows. Some hide in plain sight. Yeah, that about sums it up. It was like genuinely frightening a little bit. I really loved this. I am just loving the fact that as we get more and more of these novellas in this series, the more we're learning about Chi themselves, because the first couple novellas were just Chi as like the storyteller And we didn't really know much about them, but now we're learning more about them, their past, and their internal feelings, and I just love it. This was such a great sequel. As was this, Moon of the Turning Leaves by Wabgeshig Rice, which was the sequel to Moon of the Crusted Snow. It was a post-apocalyptic / dystopian novella about a close-knit Indigenous community in Northern Ontario. And this is about a decade later, after a mysterious event caused a blackout and a total societal collapse, which we love. So for the past 12 years, a community of Anishinaabe people have made the Northern Ontario bush their home in the wake of the power failure that brought the societal collapse. Since then, they have survived and thrived the way their ancestors once did, but their natural food resources are dwindling, and they need to find a new home. Evan Whitesky volunteers to lead a mission south to explore the possibility of moving back to their original homeland in the Great Lakes region. Accompanied by 5 others, including his daughter, Nengons, an expert archer, Evan begins a journey that will take him to where the Anishinaabe were once settled, near the devastated city of Gibson, a land now being reclaimed by nature. But it isn't just the wilderness that poses a threat. They encounter other survivors, those who, like the Anishinaabe, live in harmony with the land, and those who choose violence. This book, it blew me out of the water. Honestly, I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the first book, Moon of the Crusted Snow, which I also really enjoyed, but this was on another level. If you like The Last of Us, please don't miss this book. It was so good. Please. Nengons, the daughter of Evan, is such a great character, and it just had such great Last of Us vibes of just traveling through this devastated post-apocalyptic wasteland and still finding hope there and family. It is so good. Please, please pick this up. If you haven't read anything by Wabgeshig Rice before, you really, really need to. Please, please do. Okay, a new release that I haven't read yet but want to is The Ballad of Jacot de la Haye by Briony Cameron. And this sounds just right up my alley. It's about queer pirates, so yes. In Santo Domingo, Jacot de la Haye is an unknown but up-and-coming shipwright. Her dreams are bold, but her ambitions are bound by the confines of her life with her self-seeking French father. When her way of life and the delicate balance of power in the town are threatened, she is forced to flee her home and become a woman on the run along with a motley crew of refugees, including a mysterious young woman named Teresa. Jacot and her band become indentured servants to the infamous Black Hand, a ruthless pirate captain. As they struggle to survive his brutality, Jacot finds herself unable to resist Teresa despite their differences. Sapphic pirates is exactly what I want right now, and I really need to read this. I can't be making excuses anymore. Next question is really difficult for me to choose. It's my most anticipated release for the second half of 2024. There are so many, so I'm gonna narrow it down to just 2, which is really difficult. But the first one I want to talk about is The Scarlet Throne by Amy Liao. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This is a debut, okay? It is following Binsa, who is a living goddess chosen by the gods to dispel both mercy and punishment from her place on the Scarlet Throne. But her reign hides a deadly secret. Rather than channeling the wisdom of an immortal deity, she harbors a demon. But now her priests are growing suspicious. When a new girl, Medha, is selected to take over her position, Binsa and her demon strike a deal. To magnify his power and help her wrest control from the priest, she will sacrifice human lives. She'll do anything not to end up back on the streets, but how much of her humanity is she willing to trade in for her quest for power? It's so good, okay? This is, first of all, an amazing cover. It says it's a political epic fantasy, which is my bread and butter. It says it's full of scheming demons, morally gray heroines, and talking cats, okay? And it is a delicious tale of power and corruption. And also this has no romance in it whatsoever, which is so refreshing, and I need this right now. Okay, and the second most anticipated release is The Phoenix Keeper by S.A. McLean. So this follows Isla. As head phoenix keeper at a world-renowned zoo for magical creatures, Isla's childhood dream of conserving critically endangered firebirds seemed closer than ever. There's just one caveat: her zoo's breeding program hasn't functioned for a decade. When a tragic phoenix heist sabotages the flagship initiative at a neighboring zoo, Isla must prove her derelict facilities are fit to take the reins. But saving an entire species from extinction requires more than stellar animal handling skills. So there are carnivorous water horses, tempestuous thunderhawks, mischievous dragons in the story. Isla has no problem wrangling them. But inspiring zoo patrons, that's another story. Mustering the courage to ask for help from the hotshot griffin keeper at the zoo's most popular exhibit? Pretty much impossible. Especially when that griffin keeper just so happens to be her arch rival from college, Luciana, an annoyingly brooding and even more annoyingly insufferable know-it-all, with the grace of a goblin and the face of a goddess, who's convinced that Isla's beloved Phoenix would serve their cause better as an active performer rather than a passive conservation exhibit. With the world watching and the threat of poachers looming, Isla's success is no longer merely a matter of keeping her job. So, this is like a cozy fantasy. It's obviously sapphic, which is awesome. Rivals to lovers. And I really, really love the sound of this. Something about it just is so unique and just makes me like really happy to read it, to want to read it. So I'm really excited for this one. Okay, my most disappointing books that I have read. There are 4. This year has been an interesting year of like really, really amazing, surprising 5-star reads, and then reads that were 5-star predictions for me, of which there are 3 of them in this pile, were just horrible. So the first one is Moonstorm by Yoon-Ha Lee. If you watch my videos, you know that I really, really love his books. He writes delightfully queer sci-fi. This I was so excited for. It's a YA story about a girl who was a rebel, and then she becomes like indoctrinated by the Empire, and she becomes a mecha pilot in space. And that just sounds like incredibly up my alley, something I would absolutely love. But it was just bad. The writing was bad, the storytelling was not good, and the characters I just didn't care about at all. It felt like I was reading a really, really green debut author's book, and I was very disappointed. The next one is Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. This wasn't horrible. I really, really, really liked, what was that book's name? Dead Silence. That was a 5-star for me. That was her debut book. She writes sci-fi horror. This felt just like a recycling of the same exact characters and the same exact situations. I don't know. I felt like it was really lackluster for me. Dead Silence was amazing. Ghost Station was not a triumph of a sophomore novel, let's just say that. The next one is the one that pretty much pains me the most. Exordia by Seth Dickinson. Seth, why were you writing this instead of the 4th of Baru Cormorant? Why? This was just not enjoyable. It says Michael Crichton meets Marvel's Venom. Yeah, that's true. It follows Anna Sinjari, who's a refugee, survivor of genocide, and a disaffected office worker, who has a close encounter with an alien that reveals universe-threatening stakes. While humanity reels from disaster, she must join a small team of civilians, soldiers, and scientists to investigate a mysterious broadcast and unknowable horror. if they can manage to face their own demons, they just might save the world. I don't know, a couple things rubbed me the wrong way. First of all, this book was really disjointed. The first part of it is a completely different story, basically, which I actually enjoyed the first part, but then the second part becomes like this very cliche military sci-fi story about basically whether or not they're going to nuke the aliens that come to Earth. The aliens themselves were cool. They were snake aliens, but I don't know. Let me know what you think about this book, because I was just all types of disappointed about it because of how much I love Baru Cormorant. So yeah, not a good one. And then the last one on the sad list is Feybound by Sara El-Arifi. I absolutely love the Ending Fire trilogy, which starts with The Final Strife, and the third and final book is actually coming out this August. But this I did not love. This is a sapphic romantasy following elves and fairies, which granted is not something I usually gravitate towards, but I don't think it's just me that was disappointed in this book. It's about two elven sisters who become imprisoned in the intoxicating world of the Fae, where danger and love lie in wait. I just felt myself really, really bored throughout all of it, and I was so sad about it, but I just did not get sucked into this world like I wanted to, and like I know this author is capable of. She is capable of such amazing world building and such amazing characterization and romance writing, but this was just not it, unfortunately. Okay, for my most surprising book of the year, I have 3. I can't choose. All right, the first one is Forest of Souls by Lori M. Lee. I have a whole review of this and the whole series on my Instagram, and this was so surprising because this book has a criminally low rating on Goodreads. This has really taught me not to listen to ratings on Goodreads, because this is a YA fantasy, and in YA fantasy books, a lot of people expect there to be a romance. There is no romance in this trilogy at all, and it's very clear about that up front. This book focuses on the friendship between Saoirse and her best friend. Saoirse becomes a shaman, and she basically saves her best friend Sango, and Sango becomes her familiar. And it is just so creative, so wonderfully done. One of my favorite YA fantasies to date that I've ever read, and I really do think it's criminally underrated. So I was surprised that I liked this, because this had been on my TBR since it came out, I think in like 2020 or 2021, and I was so hesitant to read it because of the low ratings, and I just thought it would be like a run-of-the-mill YA fantasy that I wouldn't really get anything out of, but I got so much out of this. It's beautiful, inspired by Hmong shamanism and Hmong folklore, and you gotta read it. The next book that surprised me was You Should Be So Lucky by Kat Sebastian. I was surprised I liked this, not because I didn't think I would. This is a mid-century rom-com between a baseball player and the grumpy journalist, who was assigned to like write his story, and they end up falling in love, and it's very grumpy sunshine, and I really loved this book. This was a 5-star hands down. It was very, very emotional, very well done with these two main characters. They were so well fleshed out, and I just absolutely loved it. However, my previous Kat Sebastian book that I read, which was The Queer Principles, was set in the 1700s, and I didn't really love it. I think I only gave it 3 stars. It felt very average for me. This one was definitely not average, so you should absolutely check it out. It's one of my favorite romances I've read this year. And the book that perhaps surprised me the most was Real Americans by Rachel Khong. I rated this 5 stars. This is very much literary fiction, and there are a lot of elements to it that not that I didn't think I would like. The one element of it that I was very hesitant about was that it was set primarily in Y2K America, and I always really dislike books that are set there because it just feels very arbitrary. It feels like the author chose to do that because of their personal nostalgia for the time, and not because it has any real meaning to the story itself, not because it affects the characters in any way. It kind of just felt like a lot of authors want to do that because they don't want the ease of cell phones, like with the entire knowledge of a library in their hand, or they want to say that somebody's watching a VHS tape instead of a DVD, like that kind of nostalgia. Which is valid, I suppose, but it just rubs me the wrong way. This book was set during that time, and it really takes it and runs with it. It is, I should say, one of the timelines is set during there. So that timeline is set during New York City on the precipice of Y2K, when 22-year-old Lily Chen, an unpaid intern at a media company, meets Matthew, who is poised, confident, and very rich because he's an heir to a pharmaceutical fortune. Lily is the only child of scientists who fled Mao's Cultural Revolution in China and is flat broke. Despite their differences, they fall in love. So that is the first timeline, and it is simply stunning. So since this is set during New York City during Y2K times, there is a chapter where the characters personally witness the Twin Towers disaster, 9/11, and that was really, really heavy, especially as someone who grew up very close to New York City at that time. It was just really, really well done. And then we move to her son. So it's set in 2021, the next point of view, following 15-year-old Nick Chen, who feels like an outsider on the isolated Washington Island where he lives with his single mother, Lily. He can't shake the sense she's hiding something. When Nick sets out to find his biological father, the quest threatens to raise more questions than it provides answers. And then there's a third point of view that the synopsis does not share with us. It is Lily's mother. And there we find out all the secrets that everyone has been hiding. And this book is a contemporary literary book. However, it's also just, it has such great commentary on modern science, on genetic manipulation, eugenics, which is something I did not expect at all. And it also has just the absolute tiniest sprinkle of some sort of fantasy that just kind of pushes it over the edge and makes it, honestly, one of the best books I've read this year. It is stunning. It is really, really, really well done. And as someone who generally doesn't lean towards literary fiction and was hesitant to pick this up, if you're in the same boat as me, you really should read it, because every single point of view, I simultaneously really didn't want to leave the previous one because I liked it so much, and was also excited to read the new one. And it was just so stunning. It really, really surprised me in the best way possible. Okay, next question is my favorite new author, either a debut author or an author that is new to me this year. And I read all three of these books this year. They're all by Emily Austen, and I have to say that she has absolutely skyrocketed to become one of my new favorite authors. I absolutely love her writing. This was my book of the month pick for January, and I had never read any of Emily Austen's books before this one, Interesting Facts About Space. This one is my favorite of hers by far. It's just so relatable. It follows Enid, who is obsessed with space. She can tell you all about black holes and their ability to spaghettify you without batting an eye in fear. Her one major phobia? Bald men. But she tries to keep that one under wraps. When she's not listening to her favorite true crime podcast, she's going out with a rotation of women from dating apps. At the same time, she's trying to forge a new relationship with her estranged half-sisters after the death of her absent father. When she unwittingly plunges into her first serious romantic entanglement, Enid starts to believe that someone's following her. As her paranoia spirals out of control, she must contend with her mounting suspicion that something is seriously wrong with her. Because at the end of the day, the only person she can't outrun is herself. So this book and all of Emily Austen's books, including this one, which is Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead, which was her debut novel, and this one, which is her most recent book, which is Gay Girl Prayers, a poetry collection. All of her books are so funny, yet they deal with such heavy themes of grief, past trauma, just the death of a parent, a lot of really heavy stuff, homophobia, things like that. And she deals with these things in such a really sensitive way that is so relatable. It's really relatable. I saw myself in both of these main characters, Enid in this one and Gilda in this one. And in case you want my mom's opinion too, my mom liked both of these books as well. They're just so good. This one especially, I love these two have the added bonus of understanding the Catholic guilt side of being gay and queer and being raised in Catholicism. And if you have any sort of background in that, I highly recommend you not to miss Emily R. Austin. She is seriously one of my favorite new authors, and I just love all her books, and I will definitely read anything she puts out. The next question is a difficult one for me most years. It is your new fictional crush. And usually I skip over this question, but this year I recently read for Pride Month The Ride of Her Life by Jennifer Dugan, and this was my first book that I read by Jennifer Dugan, but it certainly will not be the last one, okay? I really liked this, and my fictional crush is Shani. This cowgirl here, she is a farrier who is someone who basically works on and fixes horses' hooves, okay? So Molly McDaniel is this lady right here, and her life is falling apart. Between her day job as a barista, her night job at a call center, and her student loans, she's barely getting by. And her dream of starting a wedding event planning business is basically kaput. So the absolute last thing she needs is to discover she's inherited a rundown, struggling horse farm out of the blue, courtesy of her estranged late aunt. Molly is so ill-equipped to run the barn, it's laughable. She doesn't have the money, time, or knowledge needed to save it, and she plans on selling it. But Shani is the resident farrier on the farm and family friend who was basically adopted by Molly's estranged aunt, and she's really mad that the farm is going to Molly instead of herself. So this is kind of a grumpy sunshine hate to love romance, and Shani was just so easy to love. She was just a really grumpy person who had such a soft interior that like you're using like your rough exterior to shield yourself, and it was obvious how much she really cared for Molly and her family as well. Her brother is into really dangerous riding of like broncos, like feral horses and stuff, and she really cares about his well-being for that too. She was just a really sweet character, and I really liked her. So I really recommend you pick this contemporary romance up. My favorite new character is also from A Forest of Souls. It is Saoirse. She is just so cool. She is like someone you don't want to mess with, and her character growth and her arc is so satisfying to read about. She comes from nothing, absolutely nothing. She didn't know her birth family, she didn't know where she came from, and she just wants to become something, and she does. And she is such a cool character. I mean, just look at this art. Like, she's so cool. Okay, I really love her. She's definitely my new favorite character. Next question, a book that made me cry. Here We Go Again by Alison Cochrane was so sad and so bittersweet. I really like Alison Cochrane for Kiss Her Once for Me, which is the holiday sapphic romance, and this one follows Logan and Rosemary, who spent their childhoods as best friends until an incident the summer before high school turned them into bitter rivals. Now in their 30s and working as teachers at their alma mater, Rosemary and Logan are stuck in old patterns. But when their beloved former English teacher tells them he only has a few months to live after getting diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, they're forced together to fulfill his last wish, a cross-country road trip. From Oregon to Maine. Stuffed into the gayest van west of the Mississippi, the three embark on a life-changing summer trip that will chart a new future and perhaps lead them back to each other. So this book, yeah, deals with really, really heavy themes, death of a parental figure, and it's just so good. I really, really loved Logan and Rosemary. I thought that they were super realistic. It was great ADHD representation, great, obviously, sapphic representation. I really, really loved their relationship with their teacher. It was really, really sweet and maybe a little bit unhealthy, but who hasn't had that? It was really, really good. Very, very, very bittersweet at the end. Like, I was not prepared. It's not a spoiler. The teacher does die at the end. He gets a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, and there's no coming back from that. So definitely read content warnings before you read this if you're sensitive to anything like that. But seriously, this was so, so sad, but also such a great contemporary romance and a 5-star read. Next question is a book that made me happy, and this is The Prospects by Katie Hoffman. This is the famous baseball queer trans romance that has been released this year, and it is so good. It made me so, so happy, okay? I really, really like this. It focuses on underdog and optimist Gene Ionescu, the first openly trans player in professional baseball. He has everything he's ever dreamt of until Luis Estrada, Gene's former teammate and current rival, gets traded to his team. The two can't manage a civil conversation off the field or a competent play on it, but in the close confines of dugout benches and roadie buses, they begrudgingly rediscover their rhythm. For every tight double play they execute, there's also a glance at Summertan's shoulders or a secret shared, each one a moment of possibility that ignites in Gene the visceral, terrifying kind of desire he's never allowed himself. Soon, Gene has to reconcile the quiet, minor league-sized life he used to find fulfilling with the major league dreams Louise inspires. So this book was just full of queer and trans joy. This was a very fluffy romance, and it just made me really, really happy. Like, listening to it, there was just a big smile on my face the whole time. I really loved their romance, Gene and Louise, and I really loved that it was a happy ending. You know, it was great to see more trans representation in contemporary romances, and I love gay sports romances, so this book was definitely one that made me happy. So next question is the most beautiful book I have bought or received so far this year. I have two. The first one is a book that I bought. It is Squire by Sarah Al-Faqih and Nadia Shammas, and this is by a Palestinian author. It is a graphic novel, okay, and I just find the art style so beautiful, and the story is as well, but just the art style is honestly phenomenal, breathtaking. I just love it, and it is actually one of my favorite books I've read this year. It follows Aiza, who was born a second-class citizen but has always dreamt of becoming a knight. It's the highest military honor in the once great Beit Saji Empire, and as a member of the recently colonized Ornu people, it's her only way to receive full citizenship. Now ravaged by famine and mounting tensions between the different provinces, the empire finds itself on the brink of war, and Aiza can finally enlist in the competitive squire training program. It's not how she imagined it, though. She has to hide her Ornu status in order to better blend in, and she realizes that the greater good that the Empire's military promises might not include her. So this obviously is by a Palestinian author, and I have been really trying to read more books by Palestinian authors, and if you are looking for a really good one to pick up, look no further than this. The second book for that question is Ocean's Kotori, and this is by Elaine Uchol. And this was actually sent to me by the publisher. I want to give away for it. It was published by Zando Books, the imprint Hillman Grad, so thank you very much. This was also a 5-star read for me. I absolutely love this book so much. I'm always wary when a new space opera is compared to Becky Chambers and Firefly, but in this case, it is more than warranted, okay? I love the main character, Ocean. She has never felt very Korean, even though she is descended from a long line of Haenyeo, Jeju Island's beloved female divers. So she doesn't feel like she's Korean, but the whole book in and of itself is about her kind of accepting her identity or finding her identity. And there's so much Koreanness in this book. It was really a pleasure to read. The book had so much found family vibes and amazing complicated politics and tense action scenes. I just love it, and to think that it's a debut as well. It was such an amazing debut. I really, really implore you to read it. And it's also queer. It has a main Achillean romance in it. So I really, really loved this. The cover is absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous design, gorgeous illustration, and also a gorgeous story. Okay, so last question. What is a book that I need to read by the end of the year? So I want to announce that I do have a Found in Translation book club. I have it on my Instagram, which is linked in the description, and the link to join the Discord is also in the description below. And so these two books are the picks for July and August for my book club. And I'm definitely going to be reading them this year, obviously. So one of them is The Night of Baba Yaga by Akira Otani. I'm not going to read the whole description, but it is a no-holds-barred queer thriller. A fierce mixed-race fighter develops a powerful attachment to the Yakuza princess she's been forced to kill. So it is Kill Bill meets The Handmaiden meets Thelma and Louise. What? Like, that sounds awesome. I need this. A queer book from Japan, I feel like, is so hard to find, especially translated, and this just sounds so cool and something that I will just absolutely love. So the next one, let me get it up here, is the Dallergut Dream Department Store. Okay, it was already out in the UK, but it's coming out in July in the US. So this is set in a mysterious town in which lies hidden our collective subconsciousness, and there's a quaint little store where all kinds of dreams are sold. Day and night, both humans and visitor and animals come from all over the world in their pajamas to purchase their latest adventure. Each floor in the department store sells a special kind of dream, including nostalgic dreams, trips you've taken, and delicious food, as well as nightmares. So this concept just sounds really, really cute. I've heard amazing things about it, and it's translated from Korean, and yeah, it just sounds really, really cute, and I want to read it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I am really happy to be back. I'm not sure how much I'm going to upload on YouTube just because I really don't have that much time still to film, but I am very active on my Bookstagram, so definitely check that out if you want to know what I'm reading throughout the year and you want to know my recommendations, but I am hoping to film more often. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye!